Hello traders, Rich here and welcome to Kucoin episode 8, and today we are going to talk about multi-timeframe analysis, where we put everything we learned together from the previous 7 episodes, from market structure, trend lines, supply and resistance, supply and demand, and so on. So if you haven't watched the previous episodes, I make sure to attach it in the description below as a whole playlist, and I recommend that you go over it first before watching this one. And of course, enjoy it with a cup of coffee or tea. And if you don't know about Kucoin, it's one of the largest crypto exchanges in the world with over 700 billion traded volume on the platform and 10 million registered users from more than 200 different countries. Kucoin has many features like margin trading, spot trading, trading bots, staking, mining pool, and many more with over 700 listed coins. If you don't have an account yet, I'll make sure to attach my referral in the description below. And if you create an account through it, you'll benefit from 20% discounts on your trading fees. So let's get started. And as usual, cheers. We always start from the higher time frames. That's why it's called multi-timeframe analysis. One mistake traders usually make is they start from the lower time frames and then they zoom out through the higher time frames to try to justify their trade direction, right? However, it's totally the opposite. We always start from the higher time frames, daily and weekly, which we also highlighted in the previous episode number 7 about how to have an edge over the market in crypto or in any market. Always start from the higher time frames to know where we are in the market. Are we overall bullish, bearish, or stuck inside the range? And as price approaches the lower bounds, we'll be looking for buy setups. I don't want to look for buy stops around the resistance or in the middle of nowhere, right? If you remember from episode number 7. Looking for buy stops. That's why it's important to know where you are in the market to know what to look for, right? So I'm looking for buy stops here. I don't want to buy here. I don't want to buy here. I'll be waiting for this area or for this range to be broken upward. Then I'll be looking for buy setups on this new support that was previously acting as a resistance. So that's basically it. And of course, this lower bound can be horizontal or non-horizontal, which can be a trend line, which is also what we learned previously in the previous episodes. Vice versa, as price approaches the upper bound, that can also be non-horizontal, just like these two, or horizontal, we'll be looking for sell setups. And we've got 3 types of rejections to help us know where we are in the market. The first one is a typical support and resistance, when we have many failed attempts to break below or above vice versa, above or below a certain level or area. The second one is a non-horizontal support and resistance, which is also known as a trend line. The third one is a supply and demand zone. So when we have an aggressive movement upward, that's a demand. And as price retested, we'll be looking for buy setups. Vice versa, when we have an aggressive movement downward, that's a supply. And as price retested, we'll be looking for sell setups. So let's start from weekly time frame, then we zoom into daily. And let's find our 3 types of rejection. Let's start with our support and resistance. The way to do it, as I showed you previously, but today we are going to put everything together, right? So support and resistance, we covered it as a separate episode. But as I showed you previously, you draw a random line on your chart and drag and drop it in a way to connect as many swings as possible. Of course, I'll keep this one as it's the all-time high, around 55. And of course, I'll also add the 50, which is also a very strong round number. So this is indeed a strong area, a rejection area, all-time high, round number 50, and also a supply zone, as I showed you previously. But it's not a support and resistance. For support and resistance, we need at least 2 swings to call it a potential support or resistance, but preferably 3 swings. And it can be 2 highs, 1 low, 2 lows, 1 high, 3 highs, 3 lows. Doesn't really matter, as it is a support and resistance. So for example, if we have 2 highs and 1 low, that's a support and resistance. And as price retested from the upper side, we'll be looking for buy. Unless broken downward, it will become a resistance, and we'll be looking for sell on the retest. Okay, so 3 swings, 3 touches, and it's a good level to look for setups as price approaches it. So let's do it. Let's go for green since we already got blue, right? So if we scroll down, I can't really find much here, only like 1 swing, but it's broken and so on. So it's not a strong one. We can find like multiple ones here, 1 here. It's not as strong as a typical one, as a as a clean one, but let's keep it as it's around number 40 also. As you can see, dot is respecting, because like this is an example, a practical one. Later on, if you want, we can do the same like analysis for any other altcoin. You can apply this style on any market. Okay, so 40, as you can see, dot is respecting the like levels or round numbers in terms of tens, right? So this is the 40. Now if you want, like randomly, if I draw the 30, just like without looking for support and resistance, you can see that price is respecting it quite well. It's also what a support and resistance. It happens to be around number 30. Here a resistance, here a support again, and here a resistance. Of course, it's an entire zone, not a laser level, so we should treat it like this, as we discussed in the support and resistance episode. So now it makes more sense, right? So he's acting as support, he's acting as a resistance. Support here, broken downward with many candles, now acting as a resistance. Here, broken up with many candles, now acting as a support. Here, broken down with many candles, right? A big, massive candle. Then here, it's acting as a resistance. So anyway, let's keep it as a level to keep the chart clean. And let's move forward. If you scroll down, I can't really find much. Anyway, we got the 30, which is this entire zone. So like I will not like look for any other support and resistance here, or you can simply do what? Make an offset for it, like 32, for example, and draw another one here, right? So like it would be as an entire zone. So like let's go for 29, for example, that this is it, right? Now, since we have green here, let's go for blue. And if you scroll down, I can't really find much. I can find this one here, a rejection upward, multiple rejections here, and then a break below it. Broken downward, now acting as a resistance. And here we go. We're looking for sell setups. So it's what? Let's go for a round number. Let's go for 25. Here we go. Of course, it's an entire zone, but I make it a little bit lower to touch these ones. Or you can go for this, like an entire zone. Or you can go for this area, draw it like this. And anyway, it depends on you on how you would like to do it. But for this one, I'll make it a little bit lower, and I'll go for 24 to make it like touch as many swings as possible. But it's an entire zone anyway. But since I'm drawing it as a level, I'll keep it as clean as possible. Now, if I scroll lower, I can't really find much, only one rejection. And here we go, like price is not respecting this level at all, even though it's around number 20, but it's not being respected at all. So we'll not draw it. If we go a little bit lower, you can see like multiple rejections here, but it's not as strong as the one we found here. We got rejections here, broken downward, resistance here, and a support here, but it's not very strong. Anyway, let's see if it's around number 15, if it makes sense. And yeah, you can see that it's around number 15 and many rejections from it. So I'll keep it because it's a round number, but not as a strong support and resistance. Now, if we go lower, I can see only one rejection from it. So it's not a support and resistance. So I will not draw it, but I'll keep it, however, because it's the round number 10. This is first. Second, because we've got an amazing area, an aggressive movement upward from it, which got filled here, right? But later on, price also formed a demand zone as we had an aggressive movement upward from it. And it's also the round number 10. So that's why we will keep it. If you go, anyway, let me go for green because we got blue around 15. And if you go lower, this is our last rejection, which is around 5 round number, which is also what? A demand zone, which is still fresh. Price hasn't filled this area yet, an aggressive movement upward from it. So that's basically it. Look at how clean the chart is. Just by drawing support and resistance, we know now where we are in the market, right? If you are here, that's our ceiling, that's our floor. I'll be looking for buy here, for sell here. If we break it upward, this would be our floor, this would be our ceiling, and so on. That's why it's very important to start from the higher time frames. Now, let's move forward. This is our supply and resistance. We are done with it. Let's go for trend lines. Let's see if we can find any channel or a trend line which is engulfing or like showing us the overall flow of the latest price action. And I can clearly see this channel here, right? By connecting just the last highs, we can see it better from daily time frame, but I'll draw it for now from weekly, and I'll show it to you better now when we zoom into daily. I always try to make an offset for it, and here we go. Now it makes more sense, right? So now we are overall bearish, making lower highs and lower lows. That's our big impulse movement, correction, big impulse movement. And if you remember market structure episode, right? So we are putting everything together. So now we are we are in the market around the support. Now we are bearish, right? So impulse, correction, impulse, and now we are waiting for a correction, right? For price to go out, to go upward. However, we can't really know where the correction would start, sorry. Okay, it might start here, it might start here. We can't really know. That's why we don't buy blindly. We always zoom into lower time frames, right, for extra confirmation, and we always wait for a key rejection area. For now, our rejection area is around number 10. That's why we are looking for this buy. Now we'll zoom in a bit to lower time frames to confirm that the buyers are taking over. From a long-term perspective, we're waiting for a break above this channel. Okay. So now if price trades higher from here, we'll find what? Resistance around this area, which we found from weekly time frame. Support here, resistance here, support here. Again, it's not the best, but it's around number 15, and it's lining up perfectly with our upper trend line. So if price goes up, and it's also what? From daily, it's a supply zone, as we had an aggressive movement downward from it. So now if price trades higher, we'll be expecting what? A rejection from here. This would might signal or might push the bears to take over again for the next impulse movement lower to start just like previously. But for now, so around number 10, we are waiting for the bulls to kick in, just like what happened previously. If you remember here, last high broken upward, the correction started. And around the 24, which is a previous resistance, if you zoom out, we can see it, support, resistance, and so on. So price rejected this area. If you zoom into H4, we can see it even better, which is, here we go. Price broke the 24 downward, retest the 24, and we traded lower, and the bears took over, or that confirmed taking over by breaking below this low. We also had a trend line here, or if you want, can make an offset for it, like a channel. Here we go. Let me show it to you. Here we go, right? So anyway, let's go for red for this one. I don't want to see it on higher time frame. Here we go. That's how you keep your chart as clean as possible. Also this one, fantastic, right? So now we are in this impulse phase, waiting for the bulls to take over to start what? The correction phase. And now I'll explain why I have my alerts here around like 12.5, and why I have, I don't know if you can see it, but I guess you can, my alert here around the 5. First of all, my alert is around the 5, because in case price drops from here, because we are still bearish, right? So if price drops lower from here, if the bears remain in control, then I'll be notified around the 5, which is a demand zone, and the lower trend line, which is a non-horizontal support also. So this is indeed a very strong area to look for buy stops. That's why I have my alert here. When price drops lower, if we see this drop, then I'll be looking for buy setups here on lower time frames. For now, I'm looking for buy setups here, of course, from a shorter term perspective. From a long-term perspective, I want to see this happening. A new swing high to form here, a rejection from it, and then a break above it. This would signal that finally we have a shift in momentum from bearish to bullish. But for now, we are obviously bearish, making lower lows and lower highs, right? So until this happens, a new high, a new major high, just like this big one, not like just like this, a big major high to be formed here, and then break above it and above the 15, above the trend line, this would signal that the buyers are finally taking over. In this case, like if you want to enter a long-term buy, you can enter it here, or if you want to simply trade it, wait for this. On the retest of it, we'll zoom into lower time frames and look for a buy with a nice risk to reward ratio. Anyway, let's take it step by step. We've got 2 steps before this happens. The first one is a movement upwards. It can be from here immediately, where we'll be looking for buy stops now, or a dive lower, where we'll be looking for setups. This is the first step. Second, when this happens, like for those who traded on margin, can look for sell setups here, because it's the intersection of this horizontal support and resistance, now acting as a resistance, a supply, and the upper trend line. Third, last but not least, when this happens and we drop lower, we'll be waiting for this break to enter our long-term buy. Now, for the first step, while looking for buy setups, we can apply the same logic we did previously here. Okay, to look for the sell around the resistance. Now approaching the support, we can draw a very similar trend line just like previously. This is zone. As you can see, we can do the exact same one. Here we go. And now it makes sense why I have, here we go, why I have my alert here. So if price breaks it up with a momentum candle for the bulls to prove to me that they are strong enough to break above the previous or the last major high, this is where I want to get notified and I want to enter my buy. Keep in mind that it's a short-term buy because this might hold the price down. So as price approaches this area, I monitor price action to see if we'll have a break. In this case, I'll keep holding my buy, or if we have a reversal, then I'll be closing my buy. For those who trade on margin, can enter the sell. Okay, and yeah, that's basically it to our overall bearish, making low lows and lower highs. So we might still trade a little bit lower to form a double bottom before we break the neckline, or break it up from here. And like either way, we can enter our buy if we break above the previous high, which will signal that the buyers are now taking over from H4 perspective, from a medium-term perspective. Meanwhile, we can still trade lower and lower and lower. That's why I have my alert here around the 5. If this happens, then I'll be looking also for buy stops here in case this trend line would be still valid. Then I'll follow the same logic as above. For example, if we see this happening, a drop lower, I'll be waiting for a new swing here, and then I'll be buying on its break upward. In this case, it will provide me with a better entry, better rate, thus more reward. Okay, so this is my trading plan. As you clearly see, I started from the higher time frame, daily talking about 3 steps that we are waiting for. Now we are in step 1, which we are waiting for a break or a trend continuation to the downside. In this case, we'll be looking for buy stops around the next rejection, because this is where we have an edge over the market, as we saw from the higher time frame. That's the power of starting from a higher time frame and then zooming in and in and in. I'll not zoom in lower for now because not to make this video long, but you can keep on zooming in. It depends on your time, trading style, risk appetite, risk management, and many more. Apply the same logic, but of course, like for now, I don't want to buy around this non-horizontal resistance on lower time frames. If we drop lower, then of course I'll be looking for buy stops also on lower time frames for those who like to trade on the shorter time frame. That's it for this episode, and I'll see you on episode 9 hopefully next week. If you like the content, don't forget to like this video. It will help it reach more traders, and check out the full playlist and the description below. Best of luck. I'll see you hopefully soon.